A couple, maybe like a month ago, Pastor Hayden kind of came to us and was like, "Hey, you guys want to do like, an intern night?" That's us, the interns, and kind of run things. And he just kind of asked us to kind of get together and pray and figure out, what God's speaking to us. So we're going to talk about something that's been on all of our hearts and something that we really feel is a good conversation. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about Jesus and we're going to learn. So, yeah. So, this is Edwin.
I'm Edwin, by the way.
Yeah, Edwin!
Yeah, Edwin!
Yeah!
That's Mike.
Yeah, Mike!
Give me on my ears.
How good was that worship, though?
So good!
Okay, so I guess I'll just kick us off. And something that we were kind of thinking about and praying about is just kind of this whole idea of like, we kind of started off thinking about just like being good, being okay, being, like truly like fulfilled and gratified by Jesus, by God. And so that's something that was really just, what started our, our conversation and everything. And it took a little bit of a turn into something a little deeper into our hearts. And so we're really just going to talk about, where your heart's at and where your soul's at, is your soul good, and that sort of thing. And so, yeah.
So, when we were talking about this like a week ago probably, so we were talking about how God cares where you're at. God looks at that. That's what, at the end of the day, that's what tells if we're all in or not. So one thing for me to be your location is the most important thing. So knowing where you're at with God right now. Because you can't move forward if you don't know where you're at. That's the principle of it, So you have to make sure you're all in, or you're all, like, you're either all in or all out. And all in doesn't mean you're all perfect. You're going to mess up. I mess up all the time. So, and that's definitely one thing. You got to know where you're at. Because the truth of it is, there's a real heaven, there's a real hell. As much as we believe that there's people going to heaven, there is going to be people going to hell. And personally, I want all of you guys here to be at heaven with me, obviously. But that's what my heart feels. That's what God has told me. That's the most important, to know where you're at right now.
Yeah, and what's like one way that you kind of gauge for yourself, like where am I right now, and how do you kind of, water those dry places and feed yourself when you're low?
It's going to sound so cliche, but prayer, man. Prayer is so powerful. It's a powerful weapon. And it's a dialogue. It's not a monologue. It's not like, I'm Jesus, I'm telling you this, do this, do this, do this. It's not that. Sometimes you ask for him, because, specific prayers will have specific answers. Shout out to Pastor Hayden for that one. You gotta let a moment of silence where you just tell the Lord, talk to me, tell me what you want me to do. That's because at the end of the day, it's his will, not your will. You know what I'm saying? What do you think, Mike? Like, what's one thing that would work for you?
I mean, something that we have to know is we have to know how to look at the things in us and sort out the good and the bad and the ugly and the great. And we have to know how to take those things and get rid of them, right? So like for me, too long ago to tell you, but when I was your age, age check. When I was your age, for me that was, my turning point was 17. I was worse than worse. I was making choices for me, doing things that I knew would only be good for the moment, and I didn't care what anyone had to say, but it took me being with a family that I considered like blood, as close as blood, and I was just there, I was just going to youth group to hang out because it was a better place to be than home on a Wednesday night. But this family was, they loved me, even though I wasn't their kid. They prayed for me, even though I wasn't their priority. And I was like, all right, cool, that's great, awesome. Say your words, be good. But there was a defining moment for me where I just realized I've got to let go of all this stuff, all this trash I'm dealing with. And I personally believe that them praying for me is what was the catalyst for that. It took me a long time, but there was a night I remember where they were praying for me. I got back from church. I was home. The bad stuff that I dealt with was still there though. And I remember hearing a Bible verse, and it's Ezekiel 36:26. I'll take your heart of stone, and I'm going to replace it with a heart of flesh. And something about that spoke to me. I had to go through the uncomfortable time of God taking that heart that I had that felt nothing for other people, felt nothing for family, and had absolutely no compassion for other people who were not directly benefiting me. And I had to feel that crumble. I had to feel that stone break away. And God took that and He replaced it with a heart that was loving of people despite their issue, their place in life, what they were doing for me. And to this day, we still have issues. Sometimes we still run into stuff. Family life's not perfect, but my heart towards those people is loving, it's forgiving, and it will admit when it's messed up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like that scripture, like specifically, it was on a sticky note on the front of my desk for like a while, because it's something that firstly I prayed over my dad, and just in faith that God could do that for his heart, because he is like how you are. He's not someone that sits and just loves people, and he's a really hardened person, and he has a past too, and so that is hope for me, and also just hope in general for myself, that I feel like consistently that's a prayer we need to have, is like because the enemy's constantly trying to turn our hearts to stone. That's something that's like almost an everyday battle. Like, I need this heart to be flesh, I need this heart to be feeling of what God wants me to feel, and not just what I want to feel. And especially it's a huge thing when we're wounded. We try to harden our wounds, and we want them to scab as soon as possible so that they can heal. And so that's something even relevant for that in our hearts. And
yeah, absolutely. I think like it took time for me, guys, to and I can say that it goes across the board, that this is not an overnight thing. This is not something that just changes. Right. And we have to learn to cast, the Bible says, cast your cares or anxieties on the Lord. But the end of that scripture is what gives it so much value, because He cares for you. It doesn't say just do it. We don't have a God that just takes that and makes that law, and it's like He doesn't fulfill it with something, right? He cares for us. He wants those things to be cast on Him, because He wants to free us of those. Right? Yeah.
No, definitely. I think God is priority. It should be the number one priority. One thing that God spoke unto me is like, where am I at in your priority list? Who's more important than I am, or what's more important than I am? And there was a moment where I was like, oh man, I don't know how much time I'm putting into you, Lord. Sometimes I use the quality over quantity as an excuse, like, oh, it doesn't matter 5 minutes as long as it's quality time, but were those 5 minutes my priority? Like, now I've gotten better at, every time I wake up, to pray in the morning, to give the Lord a priority, because sometimes we get stuck on, oh, I'm busy, I'm so busy on this sports, band practice, stuff like that, but at the end of the day, God comes first, and it's before anyone or anything.
That's good.
Yeah, so what's what's your go-to? How do you, sometimes there's like things that they're important, but you don't want them to be. They're a priority, but it's not like, I don't want my life to be falling apart, but it just is. I don't want my, like parents be struggling with bills, but they are. And it's something that tends to take the space in our minds over trusting in God, or over being able to spend time with Him, because we just fill it with so many other things, and not always just I have sports or I have school, like things that aren't in our control. So even things like that, what do you do in order to just be able to like let those things go and move past them so that you can make God your priority?
You know, and that's a great question, by the way. Letting go is not saying I don't care about it, you know, because if you let go, when you say let go, you say you give it to God. So you still care about it, but you want to give it into God's hands, you know what I'm saying? So God ultimately, like I said, He cares about you, He cares where you're at. So wherever, like whatever you're going through, God, give it to God, because man, He's amazing. He'll work it out. Take it from me, you know. Like 2 years ago, I was a total jerk. I was a totally different person. You know, I didn't talk to certain people because they didn't have certain followers. You know, I didn't talk to certain people because they didn't do certain things. And I want to hang out with people that did other things. Oh, and I cared about what they said. But it was until a moment where I went to a church, and I've shared this before. But the pastor said that God takes your broken heart and makes it complete. God doesn't care where you're at. He'll meet you where you are. And one thing that I've learned from that is, yes, He meets you where you are, but takes you where you need to be. So it's a daily grind. You have to work it out. It's like Mike said, it's not an overnight thing. It's a process. We gotta trust the process, and we gotta trust God that He'll take us to the promised land. You know, it didn't take Israel a whole day to go to the promised land either. So, you know, God's with you. Please just let it go to Him.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think something that's so profound about what you said, it triggers the thought that, guys, if we want to make Him priority, we have to look for His presence. We have to go after His presence. We have to pray. We have to spend time with Him. Think of the closest person to you in your lives. How did you make them that close to you? You spent time with them. You made them a priority. Not when it was convenient. You made them a priority when it was hard, when it was not convenient, and when it was untimely, but you did it. And that's what we have to do with God. I had to learn, no matter the noise in my life, no matter what was being loud, obnoxious, and negative, I had to learn to make God a priority, and not just behind closed doors. I had to learn to make Him a priority and look for His presence in the loud, not when I shut everything else out. Yeah.
Something that's like, I'm always like, I thought about this, and it's just like, I don't know, it makes my heart happy. But so in like something about like the Bible and something about God is it's not like a history book, and I actually like history. So, you know, I get excited when I get to learn about the random, you know, things that some person did like a billion years ago, not really, but, you know, and so it's, you know, you learn about, you know, Christopher Columbus, and you learn about all the things that he did, but it's kind of like, it gets messy, especially if you don't like history, and there's all these dates you have to remember, and then you're just like, I don't really care about this, you know, and it's just annoying when you have to take a test, and you're like, oh no, I'm gonna fail, and it's just stressful. You know, that can be what history is like too. And it's interesting because like the Bible is the only book that you get to read and really learn about God, about you know, someone and all the things that they've done, and it's actually for you. It's not just, you know, ambiguous and a super long time ago, it doesn't matter. And you also get to have a relationship with the person that you're reading about, you know, and the person that you're learning about. And so something, you know, like that just shows from that is that it's really a relationship, and that's something that is not, you know, normal for, you know, like getting to read about someone that's not alive anymore. You know, he's alive and he's here, and he wants to have a relationship with you. And so, you know, in order to have a relationship with someone, like you saying, you have to spend time with them. You know, you have to, you know, you have to let them in. You have to lower your walls, and you have to, you know, share with them. You have to sit down and say, like, you know, not just like, how are you doing? I'm fine. Like, you have to really like tell them, like, you know, I trust you, and I'm struggling with this. And that has to happen sometimes in order to grow in the relationship and as a person. And so that's, you know, something that we have with God. And I think it's super important to remember that He's not just asking you how you are, and you just kind of give Him like a little like, I'm good, and you move on. Like, He really wants to know, you know. And so
yeah, one thing that I take out of that is also surround yourself with the right people that you know will hold you accountable, that hold you responsible for your relationship with God, or your walk with God. For example, Pastor Aiden's one of those people for me. A couple of days ago, he was like, how's your soul at? Would you recommend someone to live in it? I was like, No, I wouldn't, because I still deal with stuff. You know, like just because I'm up here, just because we're up here, does not mean we have it all together. Does not mean that we're better than
Farthest
you.
from it.
What?
Farthest from it.
That's true. But yeah, just because we're up here does not mean that we're better than you in any way. You're probably the same place that we were. So it's really a struggle to deal with this. And so the best thing about it is that you'll have people that surround you, that will build you up, that will encourage you when you need it. And as long as you have those people, oh man, you're gonna have a great time. Because I know for me, my friends have encouraged me in times where I felt unqualified, in times where I felt like I wasn't worthy enough for God's love. And those friends honestly loved on me, they encouraged me, and I appreciate that each and every day.
Yeah, you know, man, this is there's something important about this, something to get out of this is, for me, is God sent his son to die, to give us the freedom to let go of these things. That's heavy. So, for me, you know, in the Bible says, you know, basically you bear your cross daily, pick up your cross daily. Guys, there's something very final about that. I don't know. I feel like it proves that it's not just one and done. Guys, we have to do this daily. We've got to take those things that we struggle with and pick up our cross daily and choose that today I'm going to acknowledge that God is bigger than my problems. I'm going to acknowledge that he's more powerful than my parents screaming at me today. More powerful than I have too much homework. More powerful than, hey, my friends are talking about me. And I think there's something so freeing about that.
Something that I take from that too is like, we often bring in, you know, this bag and this weight of just our burdens and our cares and our problems, and you know, during worship or you know, when the pastor's giving you good word, or in our own rooms, when our doors are closed, we take time to lay those, you know, and we're called to take time to lay those down, you know, like at the foot of the cross, and then we get up and we pick them back up and we leave. And you know, oftentimes it's like, what does it take for you to just really lay them down and leave them there, you know, and let them go, because like he said, Jesus died on that cross so that you can leave them there, so that you don't have to carry them yourselves, you know. There's a point when you carry them too often, for too long, too much, you know, and it's not, you weren't meant to carry it. So how do you not pick it back up when you leave?
For you, what was that moment where you have to know, all right, I'm done picking it back up. I'm done taking the weight and putting it back on my back and dealing with it.
I still do that. I still consistently pick it up again and leave, as if it's mine and it's not supposed to be, you know. So genuinely, it's also one of those things that it's not one and done. It takes a couple times when you know, you keep laying it down and picking it up and laying it down and picking it up, and eventually you're like, man, this is just getting exhausting, you know. And it takes so many times for you know, just sitting in my quiet time, and Jesus is telling me, like, this is not yours to carry. And so I really have to just take that moment and just tell God, you know, like, take this from me, like, please take this from me, because I can't leave it down. I keep picking it up, you know. Take this from me so that I can't even reach it anymore, you know. And that's the point that I get to a lot. One of my, you know, in each you know, a couple parts of my life where I've really just been at a loss and really just been like, this is too much for me. You know, I have to just, sometimes I'll put on worship music, sometimes I don't, and I just like have to just lay on my floor, and I'm just like, God, like, please just take this, because I can't do it anymore.
One thing that works for me, it's actually one thing that I told myself a couple of months ago, is consistency leads to certainty. The more you're in it, the more you read your about, the more you pray, the more certain you'll be that God has your back, that God has a promise for you, He'll take you there. That's one thing that God has been telling me, like, for example, I'm done with school, like, I'm like, mentally, I'm done with school. Like, I keep remembering, I keep trying to remember, like, this is the season God has me in, a season of patience. I have to work right now, because if I can't work right now, how can I work in college? You know, so I have to be consistent with my relationship with my job. Well, the job I have is in high school, which is considered a job, you should get paid for it. But anyways, yeah, you gotta be consistent with your relationship with God, because if you're not, it's gonna be tough. But yeah, as long as you're consistent, the more you're in it, the more you pray, the more God will talk to you. The more God talks to you, the better your life will be.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's also, like we were talking about, kind of with surrounding yourself with the right people. I think it makes it much harder when we don't. I mean, we have, look around you guys. This is your tribe. This is your community. We're your community. You're our community. And finding those people, not just your age, but older than you, who've been there, who've seen the struggle, who've failed, who've succeeded, and are here shoulder to shoulder with you. That's powerful. That's big. We have to look to those people and be vulnerable with them and say, hey, I'm struggling. And that's not easy. Like, it's not easy for me to tell you, hey, 2 months ago I was going through some stuff. And I had to sit there and relearn how to take the weight off my back and lay it at the foot of the cross. How to take the things I struggle with and say, I'm done with them, not because not just because I'm stressed, but because to get to where you want me to be, God, there's not room for both of those, for you and the stress, for you and the problems. You're bigger than the problem, so why worry myself? Why cry about it? Why be upset about it? Gotta let go.
Yeah, actually something that I also, now that I think about it, comes to mind is, you know, like, there's been times when, you know, I'm in the middle of that prayer and, you know, asking God to just take it, and it's because I don't even want to give it to Him in the first place, you know. It's not always something that's, like, easy to give up, you know, like, oh, this is a burden and I don't want it anymore. Like, I don't want to have that burden, so it's easy to give away sometimes. But other times it's something that is just, I know that it's bad for me. I know that it's not, you know, building me up. It's not edifying, and I don't want to give it away because it's comfortable or it feels good, or you know, it's gratifying the flesh, or whatever that may be. And I don't want to give it to Him. I'll just keep carrying it, even though it's weighing me down. You know, even when it gets so heavy that I can't move, I still don't want to give it away because I'm a human and I'm that stubborn. And so, yeah, exactly. We have to crucify it daily. And I think something, you know, about that crucifying, you know, crucifying your flesh and you know, dying to yourself, is that, you know, if you think about the crucifixion, you know, think about the brutality and the morbidity. Think about how awful it was. Think about Jesus not even being recognizable as a man. That would be horrible. That's more than, you know, any word that I can even, like, describe. You know, it's something that it brings me to tears. You know, a lot of times when I think about just how awful that would have been. And like, when He uses that word, crucify your flesh, He's not using it because it's a pretty word or because it has, you know, it looks nice or whatever, or like the way it was spelled. He's using it because if He wants you to think about the crucifixion, it wasn't easy. It wasn't something that, you know, Jesus was sweating blood in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he was about to die just thinking about, you know, getting on the cross. And so that's kind of to show you, kind of delineates, like, look, like, you're called to crucify your flesh, and it's not easy. That's there to show you that it's not going to be easy or simple or convenient.
Yeah, he knew that he didn't want to do that, but he knew what had to happen. He knew to get to where, to finish the race strong and to do what had to be done. That is what had to happen. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, definitely. It's just crazy for me. I was thinking what you're saying right now, and it takes sacrifices sometimes. You know, for me to move on from where I was at, I had to cut some loose. That doesn't mean I treat them like garbage or anything like that. That means that I'll just say hi to them. That's about it. I'll need their opinion. I'll need their input into my life because the only input that matters at the end of the day is God's. You know, it's in the Bible. That's the best thing. Now, that doesn't mean I won't listen to opinions because I'll listen to opinions. I'll listen to the important ones, the ones that actually I know will help me get better. You know, just because somebody thinks this or that about me, that doesn't mean that's who I am.
Yeah.
What I am is not based on what I do. What I am is based on where my heart is. Where if I say I'm son of God, I'm son of God. If He says I'm son of God, I'm son of God. So when literally John 3:16 says, "For so He loved the world, He gave His only Son. Whoever believes in Him will not perish but have eternal life."
Yeah.
That means something. I know it's used frequently. It's probably the most known. It's probably like the only one I remember. That's so bad, but that verse is so important to our lives because we have to understand that, we have to comprehend that, we have to implement that into our heart. That God loved me, He died for me, even though I didn't deserve it. You know, and that's awesome for me. That's what was going on to my head right now when you were talking about that. So yeah.
Yeah, you know, so tonight we're gonna challenge you guys. So here's what's gonna happen. If you look in front of you or behind you in the front row, there are gonna be some sticky notes. And we're gonna challenge you to spend about 5-7 minutes really thinking about what are the things in my life that I need to let go of. What are the things in my life that I'm just done with, that hold me back, that stress me out, that are too much for me to handle in the moment. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna have Ariel come up when after that time. She's gonna play. And there's a cross right over there. And we're gonna have you guys go and literally nail those things that you are done with to that cross. We're going to put them at the foot of the cross and be done with them tonight.
Actual cross in here.